launch for Newport News. Let's go. I'm Jackie.
I'm Hannah.
And we are half of a...
This is our tagline from where the origin story of where we came from is I'm Jackie, I'm Hannah, and we are Your Neighbor's Hood.
A podcast for uncomfortable culture conversations
About race.
And so their question came of, what are we honoring? Y'all remember we was talking about monuments back then? And we was like, what are we honoring? And I think I asked you a question about
street names. If you start to look around at street names, I don't know. If you have not been already aware of this, many people have already been aware of this, but if you haven't been paying much attention, you start to see how many Lee Streets there are. You can start to see how many, there's a lot of things that we're commemorating that I wonder if we should still be commemorating. And there's a lot of things that I thought existed in this area that is my chosen home now that I didn't know and that I thought I would like to commemorate. And so out of that idea and out of those conversations came the idea, like, let's go around, let's talk to our neighbors, let's zoom way in. Let's get hyper local and find out stories from places right in our neck of the woods. And luckily, we went around and talked about this idea enough. And then the Virginia African American Cultural Center.
Shout out to the Virginia African American Culture Center. If there's folks from Virginia African American, they're on that.
Here from the Virginia African American Cultural Center, and she and Dr. Ross Hammond believed in this idea, and they're the reason that it came about. So, Crystal Sessoms.
Greetings, everyone. Our mission at the Virginia African American Cultural Center is to collect, preserve, interpret, and celebrate Virginia's African American history, culture, and community, and to educate the public on African American contributions in all areas of endeavor. So what does that exactly mean? We are a nonprofit that's working on building an African American Culture Center for the state of Virginia, located in Virginia Beach. Most recently, we have had some movement on our land. So the land was gifted by the city of Virginia Beach. The NBA and Something in the Water this summer refurbished the basketball courts, and it looks absolutely amazing, and that is something that the community wanted, to keep the basketball courts. And so now we're working on breaking ground to build this fabulous building for our state. In the meantime, we support programs and create programs throughout the state of Virginia, but we support initiatives like Truth Be Told. And this initiative is so important because they are telling stories that we often don't hear. And if it wasn't for all of their hard work, their dedication, we wouldn't hear these stories. So I'm so proud to be here for two reasons: to represent the Virginia African American Culture Center in this great project. But I'm also happy to be here today because this is my old stomping ground. So I used to be the director of the Newsom House. I used to do promotions and marketing here, and I've done shows and concerts and plays right here on this stage. So it's important for us to have the Virginia African American Culture Center, Truth Be Told, these initiatives, so that people like me, who grew up in Newport News, I grew up in the church right beside us over here, can have a place to express ourselves and to express our African American history, culture, and community. So to learn more about us, please go to our website at www.vaaccvb.org. I have a table in the gallery. I will be here until everyone leaves if you want to talk more about it. And I just want to thank you ladies so much for all of your hard work and dedication. On behalf of Dr. Ross Hammond, we are so glad to be a sponsor of this project.
Do you remember, actually, down to Crystal, we could do 4 cities as part of this grant, and so she said you got to do Newport News, and we said all right. She was the one who said got to do Newport News, so that's why we're here. So thank you, Crystal. One last huge thank you to Visit Newport News, who has been just amazing. I don't know if we're allowed to say.
We don't say it because listen, okay, I'm thoroughly upset with everybody. And I can't help but to say it because it makes a difference. Hampton Roads is an amazing space. And I came here kicking and screaming. Okay? My husband made me come, y'all.
Truth be told.
But we have such an amazing region, and we're relying on these places like Newport, like Visit, Newport News, to show how great our city is. No other city honored, valued, and understood the necessity of telling stories like this, like Newport News. And they were already doing the work with ACE. So we are super appreciative to y'all for literally rolling out the red carpet. Because if you had came first,
It would have been uncomfortable afterwards. Right?
very. Let's get to it.
We're not going to spend the whole time tonight listening to everything, so you have that to look forward to. But what we are going to do is play a little clip of each piece.
Tiny clip.
Just a few minutes. And while we play that clip, the storyteller and a partnering organ are going to come to the stage. And each of these stories could be its whole own event. We could really deep dive like that. But this is meant to be like a little tasting platter.
Tapas.
Right, of the city. And you can do your own deep dive, and we hope you will after this. But we're going to play a little clip, and then we'll ask a question to the storyteller and to their community org, and then we'll move on. And then afterwards, invite you to go deeper into conversations that captured your attention.
Right?
Yeah?
So are you ready? You're ready for some stories?
What occurred with desegregation, we lost 2 African American high schools, Huntington and Carl. And I asked my mama, why did y'all fight to keep one of those schools? Because every other city, Richmond kept Armstrong and they kept Maggie Walker. Norfolk kept Liberty. Portsmouth kept I.C. Norfolk. And we didn't fight. And our parents thought that with desegregation, it would be so much that, but as I got older, that did something to the community, because when you have a school in your neighborhood, then that's when kids meet kids at the football game. You know, I could go to a football game in high school. The stadium, Huntington, was right in the community, and Friday nights, that's where everybody met at the football games. Was my first grade teacher, and Barbara Williams was my second grade teacher. But it was nothing for your teacher to show up at your house, which we lost teachers, you know, and it was nothing to see your teacher in the store, to see your teacher at the movie theater. So, you know, they were moving in the community, and we didn't see that after desegregation. I think visits to the homes probably ceased, but I think that was important, you know, to be able to see your teacher, look up and see your teacher knocking on your door.
Miss Joni Ivey, everyone. So before I get to your question, I'm gonna say, you told us something about you, and we're not gonna say it here, we're just gonna tease them. You told us something about you that you said that hardly anybody knew. Yeah. So y'all listen, okay? Y'all listen for that. You know, one of the reoccurring things that we saw across these stories, especially because this is a multi-generational project from our elders, was all that desegregation took. A deep sense of loss of community. I wonder from your perspective what you feel like you were able to save, that you saw that was saved during that time of integration, and maybe how you feel like it shows up in your community and in the school that you help bring forth now.
Okay. First of all, Delegate Glass is very persuasive because I told her I have absolutely 100% stage fright, but I'm here. She's very persuasive. I think one of the things that our parents were happy about desegregation because we did schools were better. We no longer had books that had been passed down. When I was in high school, most of my books were marked up. We had to cover them up with brown paper bags, and our desks were marked up. But when we went to desegregation, things improved for children. Opportunities, experiences that they may not have had improved. But I always said we were doing well, but we had the promise that desegregation would make things better for everybody. It would equal the playing field. And so that's one of the things. It equaled the playing field for the next generation. But my generation did well, even though we had hand-me-down books. We had hand-me-down desks. We were excelling because our teachers were from the community, and they were making sure that we did what we needed to do. And so we took that, the majority community got some very talented teachers from desegregation. My English teacher, and I always tell this story, was reading for the SATs back in 1970s, Blanche Williams. And she was transferred, I think, to Warwick High School, and they were looking for someone in Newport News to read for the SATs. And they called the SAT to say, we need somebody to read. And they said, well, you have one of the best persons in the country that's already reading. And so there were gains on both sides. Gains on both sides.
I'm going to point out something that I learned that I think from your story is a lot of our elders don't say white. I'm just being real with you, and the stories across the cities, they don't say white, and you say the majority. And I believe we are the majority. But I know that there's something to that, and I'm so grateful that you, can we please, I really did do a lot of persuading. Give Miss Ivey another round of applause. She did tell us she didn't have no story to tell. Okay, so Lou, we have Mr. Lou Radford here. Yeah, we related, now we just made that happen, right?
Absolutely.
We're family.
We're family. You're my cousin.
That's we're cousins now.
How about me?
You're my cousin too. I put no raisins in that potato salad.
Now in the story we learned about the work that Ms. Ivey did to help bring the Heritage High School and so that she did to make sure that there was something still to really sort of build what she felt like she was. And you now walk those halls. You did as a student. Your siblings did as a student. And now you're in those halls. And I'm wondering from you, I lost my train of thought.
I know it. I know what we're wondering. We were both curious. Together, so Ms. Ivey talks so much about the student access to their teachers who are just in the community, who are there for them. And so then Ms. Ivey is part of a group of people who made there be a school back in that community. So if you haven't heard, that's what she did. And now that is the school that Mr. Lou Radford works in as the math lead. And so we're just curious, what does that student connection look like now for you with your students?
Well, one of the things that she mentioned, she talked about how in those days of transition, it really took the people that were already involved in this community, that were really investing in it, to create the transition. And because of that, what they did was birth that next level of grassroots educators, if you will. So one thing that a lot of even the people I've seen in this room, we all kind of collaborate unknowingly sometimes to reteach the history, to enrich students with the value of what Newport News is. A lot of times we have to spend time teaching kids what Newport News is in order for them to really wake up and realize that this is something to be prideful of. So little things like when I was playing ball at Heritage, I remember a game where we tied Ferguson in with our game, and you know, like Aaron Brooks was there, his jersey was retired, we wore light blue sneakers. So we really had to invest some time into being intentional about making sure we weave the past into the future.
And you produced such a great job of that. If you haven't been to the library, I feel like most people here at Newport News, I'm telling you old news now, but if you go to the library, there's that booklet, Until Freedom Comes. So if you are not from here, or if you don't know that history, it's so much more accessible here than a lot of other places to see that timeline walk forward.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Beautiful. Thank you.
We go into the boardroom, we sit down in the office, like, you guys need any water or anything? Like, they're treating us very well. So their whole team is there, and we have this meeting and we're talking about what's going on. I'm like nervous, because I'm like, dude, what did I do? What are we getting into? We had an executive summary that I wrote up and presented to him of all the things that we wanted to get done about the university. And it was also a tactical, strategic plan of how to implement these things. Not just, I want these things to happen, but here's how we can do it. So we went over the entire executive summary. He was like, I'm very impressed by what you were able to do. But we had that meeting, not much changed after that, honestly. You still had classes that year, but what did happen is students just didn't go to class that day. It was kind of a protest in a sense.
So they decided to bring in some backup.
We were able to reach out to the Newport News NAACP to help our cause. Dr. Pastor Reverend Willard Maxwell of New Beach Grove Baptist Church was also the acting president for the Newport News NAACP. So I reached out to them like, these things are going on campus. We need some help as students, and he helped a lot, and we were able to lead a march around campus on MLK Day that led to this event where he then gave me and Paul Tribble a award of recognition from the Newport News NAACP for bringing about MLK Day to the forefront of Christopher Newport University. I felt good. I mean, I felt like my voice had power. I was happy. It was a great day.
So, first things first, this is not Dr. Maxwell. You know, this is real life. We're just moving and shaking and adjusting. But this is Cameron Bertrand, who's here to be a different community partner. And it so happens that you also knew him there and played football, right, at CNU, am I correct?
Yeah, and I served on the executive leadership board under Pastor Maxwell at the time.
Okay, familiar with him then. And so then are you guys both familiar with the chant that the football team did?
So this football team?
Okay, bro, come on, man.
Football team? Yeah. Did you guys have a chant that was,
Well, we had a chant.
how did that
We had a few of them, but we had one that we made. We had one that we made probably in like 2009, 10.
go? Okay.
And I think they still.
Seeing you in the house.
Bad news, captains in the house, bad news. The foot tap is crazy. How you know about that song?
She said it all. I had to go ahead and follow up.
I'm gonna leave you out there to draw like that. But yeah, it was an interesting time to have that chant going because the connotation behind bad news was a negative one. So, you know, that representation that we brought was like, yeah, it's bad news for y'all, but we're not bad news.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying?
So, on that point, I've spent a lot of time listening to your story. And so maybe I'm projecting this, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like there was this moment in time for you where you were a kid, you played football, you got into school, you did football, and then football fell apart, you know, for the shoulder, whatever. And then you found, in this moment in time, you found this thing. Like this is it feels like a crystallization of then like what was to come for you next. And so I'm wondering, about that idea of bad news. Like, how did Newport News shape you as a person? You're not, you came here.
From the sticks, he claims. He's from the sticks.
I'm from the sticks, yeah. I'm from Bedford, Virginia, which nobody probably knows what that is. Raise your hand if you know. Okay, hold on.
Oh, they showed out today.
But y'all are like elected officials. Y'all gotta know than that. But yeah, I'm from the sticks. I'm from a really small town. How did Newport News shape me? I feel like Newport News made me the man I am today. I've been in Hampton Roads for 10 years. Newport News was my entry point. And I think at Newport News, through meeting people like Cam, we also had Reeman as a coach while I was there. He was the running back coach. And just seeing the fabric of the community, I was able to understand what was around me, right? Because CNU, or Christopher Newport, is a PWI, which is a primarily white institution, less than 8% African American in a predominantly minority community, right? And so a once thriving shoe lane community was kind of picked off one by one to develop the beautiful campus that's there now, and I'm coming into an area that I'm not familiar with, but also a city that I'm not familiar with, and I'm learning all of these things. And I think I was able really to see, again, the power of the voice or the power of the people, So I really think that Newport News gave me empowerment and allowed me to really follow my talents, meet amazing people, kind of create my own lane here. I came freshman year, I didn't go back, you know what I mean? So I really had a great time at CNU, and at the time that I started the petition, my football career was over because it was like end of my senior year. Had to get a shoulder surgery, so I don't know if y'all are familiar. Okay. But I was in this immobilizer, you know what I mean, which is like a cast type of situation, you could say. It wraps around your waist, and it's like a super sling that's held by like a steel bar, so your arm is literally like this. So I was like that for 3 months. I couldn't drive, couldn't barely use the bathroom. So we on Christmas break, and I just had this revelation, like, why do we have classes on MLK Day, and why don't we have any programs at the university? And I think CNU is one of the last schools to recognize MLK Day as a national day of service. So, I'm just proud to be able to do that and to have dope people in the community to empower me and to give me resources. And I think if Hampton Roads is nothing else, it's the biggest small town in the world, and anything that you need is here, and you can really make a ripple with your voice and see the effects of the things you do.
I'm gonna say something I picked up on in this episode, if I may.
Yeah.
So he said it from the six, y'all. And in the episode, he goes, different kinds of white folks. He's like, I came from the six, but it was different kinds. And you could process that out with us of just the difference of how we interface with, quite frankly, racism, and how you were not used to overt racism, not covert. And it was also a learning experience. And from Newport News, but necessarily seeing you he was like, I'm used to the Confederate flags and you show me who you are. But it was a learning. It's so glad that he had folks out in the community. Cameron, during that time, he was mentioned in the clip we just heard. They decided to honor both Kello and Petrie. Is that what we call him?
Yeah, that's what we call it.
Petrie, the president, even though he hadn't done anything. And I'm wondering about, as we look at the waxing and waning of NAACP as you being part of one, of the importance of strategy in these things. And I think I was sort of floored that he got an award, but we sort of get that, it's a strategy of the strategy here in this place that's kind of made it a better place, made Newport News better. You being a part of that board, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, at the time, being a CNU alum and being a resident in Newport News, I had an opportunity to use my own platform to kind of bridge the gap. And so there was not an existing chapter at the time with Christopher Newport with the NAACP. So when Pastor Maxwell reached out, this was shortly after I finished running for school board at the time. And so the representation that was needed on campus, yes, y'all ain't hearing whisper, Markel was my campaign manager in 2020 when I ran for school board. He did a tremendous job. So being able to be a part of that representation and the advocacy and was just making sure that the students that were on campus, CNU has went through a lot of different changes. I think even for me, when I was there, it was a stronger presence with the Black demographic on campus. So CNU hasn't really had a hard time getting Black students in. It's helping them stay there and graduate. And when we get to CNU, we see that it doesn't have a lot of infrastructure that reflects Black people and Black students and Black spaces. So a big part of that for me was making sure we had a representation, making sure that the students had people that they could not only reach out to in the community, but understand what true leadership and civic engagement and being a legislative leader could look like. So I've learned a lot from the people in Newport News. I am not from Newport News. I think a lot of people think that because of how much time I spend here, how hard I go for the city, the fact that I keep living here. You know, I was a military child, so I saw a lot growing up, and the amount of pride and legacy and heritage in Newport News, CNU has created this bubble. And if you've ever been on CNU's campus, you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't necessarily feel like Newport News. You could be on campus for days, weeks at a time, and feel like you're in a whole other part of the world. And I think that that was somewhat disrespectful to the surrounding community. That there are students who drive past that campus every single day and didn't feel like they belong there. So that was a big part of like even the community cabinets initiative and different things. But I think going full circle, seeing Markel at an early age, you know, yeah, I'm older than him, so I get to say stuff like that. At an early age and being a student and actually caring about these issues. And these are things that he mentioned. He was a senior when he did this, right? So that means that Markel could look at this as an opportunity to just grind through, graduate, and put this in his rearview mirror. But he did something that was going to create a better space for the students that are still going through experiences at CNU and making sure that he stayed local to be accessible for the people who may have seen glimpses of that legacy.
The Newport News effect.
Yeah.
When I was originally asked to run for clerk, my first response was, that sounds boring. It does not sound like anything I would ever do. But I also started to research the position and what is the position responsible for, and can I really make an impact? What I will say most impressed me was truthfully the discretion you have, and having a court system, not just in Newport News, but everywhere where people feels like the system is set up against them. And to know, in order to get to the system, i.e. the judges and in court, you have to go through the clerk. In Newport News, we had not had an African American to be the clerk of circuit court prior to me, or a female to be the clerk of circuit court prior to me. We're still in a society and a generation of a lot of firsts, not just in Virginia, but everywhere.
We have talked a lot. Your story hit this thing for us that we had spent a lot of time talking about, which is, well, because you're a mom, in addition to being clerk of court. But in terms of passing on a story, a lot of times we find people who don't share their story, or kids will listen to their parent's story and they come back and tell us, like, I had no idea that this was, I knew like just the broadest terms of what happened. I didn't know the details of what happened. And some of that we've understood is for protection, because you don't, you know, you want to make a better world for the next generation. But we are biased toward the idea of sharing those stories, right?
Very biased. Very biased of sharing story. It's very interesting too. You start your story of telling us in the middle of it. If you're a parent in here, I think you may empathize with this. Being a parent and knowing your child is in a situation where they are unsafe. And you're in a meeting. And there's definitely a stigma for a mother to shut things down or to make that decision, you want to take that call in the middle of this thing where, I don't know if you've been to the courthouse and looked at all the pictures on the wall. Many of them are in black and white. Not many of them have black in that white. Only one does. And so sitting and holding yourself into this standard of being a first in all these things and having a child in Newport News Public Schools and navigating and holding all these things in your hands, how do you, in these moments, plan to share this culmination of things? Because there's a lot of moving parts in your story with your progeny, with your children.
That's a great question. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom first. And so that comes before my professional title. That's what I do, but it's not necessarily who I am. And so my children come first. And I am extremely transparent with them. I am extremely transparent with my strengths, my weaknesses, my struggles. And so I'm a lot like you two in that I face things head on. And when I ran for public office, my eldest child was 12 years old. I believe the middle was maybe 8, and then the little boy was a baby. And so they've seen us go through these things. They knock doors with us. They come to the courthouse with us. They're there at the dinner table when we're talking about the good, the bad, and everything in between. And so I don't hide those things from my children. And when we speak about building a legacy and we speak about history, in order for history not to repeat itself, we have to be extremely intentional. We have to be blunt. We have to be transparent and honest. And so that is how I am with my children. And you said something, just to piggyback a little bit, about being a female in this space and a woman in this space and struggling with if I take the phone call or not. That is not something that I struggle with, because if Newport News Public Schools come on my caller ID, I don't care where I am going to answer the call, because how would we feel if we did not? And our child was in imminent danger and we were not there for them. And so it's absolutely no other situation that is happening that would ever trump that. And so I believe that my professionalism and my work will speak for itself for those that are honest enough to see it without bias. But I have to be there for my children, because that's the legacy. When we're speaking of legacy, that's what will last. And when I'm dead and gone, and I tell them that all the time, they will be here, and the other children in Newport News will be here to tell all of our stories.
Beautiful. And safety is a huge deal, right? There's not a lot of, as we grow into an environment where there's a lot of women coming into spaces like this, and we're taught dancing around the predominantly male spaces. Safety is a huge deal. Absolutely. And protection and feeling safe and feeling protected. Dr. Hicks, why do I call you Dr. Hicks? Maybe that's your thing. Girl, just said, Dr. Hicks, like, it felt real. It felt like that was what I was supposed to be saying. In your lens of, you have made your life's work of expressing how we keep women safe, how we keep welcoming environments, how we do this. How would you say that a place like Newport News could do that? Keep a woman like her feeling safe, feeling like this is a great place for her and for her project?
Well, I think it's, hello Newport News. I'm not from here. And I can tell you when I did come, you guys are rough. It was like in 2008, it was rough, but it is much better now. But what I can say is that, it goes back to elevating women and just in general. And my focus right now is focusing on Black women and girls who are at the highest risk of violence and victimization. And that was birthed out of Sustained Equity Group, which is an organization that I started in 2020, the worst time ever, but I started in 2020, but prior to that, I came to Virginia in regards to safety. It was when the GDP, which now FBIP and every other acronym you can think of when it comes to gun violence prevention, it was before it became anything. And I was brought here to, garner support. And on the top of that list was Newport News. Like, it was just like the #1 thing, and I didn't know anything because I'm from Jersey. Shout out to Jersey. I know there's one person out to Jersey. But I think safety first is really about understanding that we've got to transform how we think about equity and the differences of what that looks like, because one neighborhood may have more than another, just like an individual, and it gets kind of murky and mucky when it comes to safety. It doesn't matter where you are, we are all vulnerable. Every one of us, no matter where you are. So I think just being transparent in what your needs are and being transparent with what violence truly looks like in the community is #1. But I think what I'm learning is that we are always going to be on alert. It's really hard for us because, and especially when you look at Black women in general, but Black women, when we leave home, we've got to not only consider our children, our mates, our family members, like it's always an extra layer of something. So safety is just going to always be aligned with how you're communicating with your family and understanding that if we provide our family, by example, of course, with the skills, communication and how to pay attention to your surroundings. I'm a retired bounty hunter. I still have a private investigation firm, and so I really focus on making sure that people understand your surroundings are very important. You have to understand that. The kindest person can be the worst person. It's not looking at somebody by what they look like. It's about understanding your surroundings consistently and knowing what to look for. And those are the things you want to part ways with your children and with your loved ones in your family, and especially men, because sometimes we look at men as provider and protectors, but they also need to be protected as well, because we see an increase in violence where it's more of our female offenders, and that's going to probably continue unless we change some policies, but that's the thing, that's what I'll leave it at.
And we appreciate you. I think we owe this woman, this history maker, and your steadfastness and 10 toes down on you are, what you are, and showing up for this community. So ladies and gentlemen, the voice of reason in the courthouse.
I saw it every day. It was my lifestyle of just having these guys in the house around playing the game on the weekends, making sure they stay out of trouble. They were inside of my house just so he knew they weren't in the streets. And overall, it's like years go by, and next thing I know, I don't think nothing of it, but it starts to build my foundation of the young man, the young adult I was becoming. My first memory, I probably had to be around 4 or 5, and it continued like heavily all the way up to like my teenage years. So probably 7 to 8 years of consistent, the whole team doing sleepovers and being in my house. It was, Sega Genesis, Madden 64, Super Mario, the classics that I thought I was pretty good at until they come over and then they showed me I'm not that good. But all in all, I feel like I got better playing, definitely. And then when it was time to play my friends, it was over for them because I got my practice versus the older guys, playing hide and go seek, making hot dogs, spilling mustard on the cover, trying to get it out, going in, playing with my clothes, wearing my hats and stuff. It was like a fraternity at the time, man. I had no idea, but I loved every second of it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You said in your story, you're telling this part, the clip that we just heard, you're talking about just this dreamy childhood of having all these big brothers that were there and they're doing all the stuff and they're playing with you and you're, oh, by the way, becoming a very good football player because of your surroundings. But you had all these brothers, and so that was the view, and in the story you take us back to that view, but at the end of the story, you let us know that now the cycle's continuing, and now you're a dad, and I know from you telling us that your dad had a different perspective on what it was keeping those boys there and safe and taken care of and looked after. You know, he had a different lens on what that was. And so now the question to you is, out of that, what is life looking like for your son? What do you envision for him? Like, what are you going to see and what is he going to see?
First and foremost, I gotta give a shout out to my dad, Coach Tommy Rickman Sr. You know, being a single father, raising a young man was not easy. And he surrounded me by the community. Every day, from Midtown Community Center to Doris Miller to his football team, you know, I was surrounded and raised by the community. And that's exactly what I want to do and instill in my son, because it takes a village to raise a child. And I'm literally property of Newport News, Virginia. That's how I feel. And it started with just surrounded by great role models from top to bottom. I said in my story that, you know, our house was uptown, but I was raised on 22nd Street at my grandmother's. So literally, you know, from top to bottom, you know, I had the influence of the city on me every day. And that's exactly what I want my son to feel.
Yeah, is he gonna get his crust? Cut the crust on his stuff for him too? That's a real question.
She referring to my dad would wake up at 5 a.m. He's working at Ward, so he's dropping me off at my grandmother's house, and she'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich waiting for me. But she knows she gotta get that crust off. You know, kids don't eat the crust. But I'm gonna try to force it on my son. I'm gonna try to force it on my son.
We're going to revisit you in a year and see what you said.
He did remind us that he's grown now.
Yeah, I eat the crust. I do eat the crust.
But with that, he giving his bucket, getting better at Madden, you know, all the things. There are these key ingredients, we think, to making, quite frankly, a brotherhood. I think I felt that among the men, particularly in this town, that there is a sense of brotherhood, which I don't think we saw that in any other city. If I could be candid, in your world of creating spaces, right, for young folk, and a lot of them Black males, what are the key ingredients do you think Newport News has to offer in building a brotherhood?
Key ingredients definitely has to be the type of people that we have that are intentional in certain ways. I could say, for example, the fact that I've given a third of my life to Newport News. I'm 33 years old. I've been here since 2009. You know what I mean? I think it's an honor and privilege to be accepted into a city that you're not from, that is prideful, that has a lot of people who have come out of the city to do amazing things. So the fact that Tommy has stayed here, and if y'all know anything about Tommy and all that he's done, not just in the sports world, but here in the 7-5 with our young people as an entrepreneur, I personally don't have too many people that I can call family that are doing it and getting out the mud the way that he is and the way that we are. I've been self-employed for 5 years, so being able to talk to somebody that has sacrificed over and over and over again, he has a family of his own, but to put things and invest in the future of our city because he knows that that makes it a better city for the young people, for his family, for his child that's going to grow up here. The conversations that we've had, when he calls and he's like, yo, Cam, this shooting just happened in this neighborhood. What more can we do? Yo, Cam, I got this idea for this event that we can do for free for the community. Let's do it. Like, to have the ingenuity and to always be willing to give your intellectual property and sacrifice the way that you have deserves nothing less than applause. Brotherhood is not just how we show up, but it's how we treat each other, the representation that we leave behind, making sure that our young people know that if we stand together, there's nobody that can divide us. A lot of our young people are looking to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And for a lot of us, especially in Newport News, it's always been being successful is being able to put clothes on the table, or clothes in your back, food on the table, and a roof over your head. And there's plenty of people in Newport News that are doing that, but not by legal means. So to have people that they can see and touch and be there, right there, and be like, yo, I can go to Patrick Henry Mall and go to the store, or go to the schools, or go and see the legacy. Like, that's something that I've always admired, appreciated, and I carry that in a lot of things that I do. So that brotherhood is not being able to just lean on each other, but knowing that there are people who need to see real examples of what that looks like. And he's a walking representation of that in everything he does. So you deserve your flowers every bit of the way, bro. You could have been anywhere else doing this, but you stayed here, and that deserves nothing but thanks. Big city.
Part of Sean's dream was to train athletes at a high level. He built a system to concentrate on speed, power, change of direction, agility, and mobility. He wanted to consistently place high school athletes on college teams. His dream was also to make amends. Rylan was part of that dream too, and she had plans as well.
Prior to us getting together, I got my certification to be a yoga instructor. For me, it was really important. I have a mental health background.
Rylan was convinced that these tools could help, but Sean still needed convincing. Or at least, that's what he let Rylan believe.
I would literally sneak, I would close both doors, and I would literally sneak to do yoga.
Because he wanted to do it with me. I was like, just try this. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Like, I'm in my house, I'm sneaking to do yoga. Like, I turn some music on, like, just try to keep normal sound. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to fall or do nothing crazy. I'm like, this is crazy. Look, we got to communicate, baby. I've been sneaking doing yoga because I need some more guidance. But after sneaking it a few times, I'm like, hold up. I ain't hurting like I was hurt. Like, this works. So that, like, we started doing it together. I was really more like ashamed of my limitation of like my range of my mobility and the pain still. But it helped, like the pain definitely started just easing down. Like, as an athlete, if I went to therapy and they kicked me out of therapy after 11 months, and I started doing yoga and I'm feeling better within 8 weeks, this is what athletes should be doing.
Together, they have developed a holistic program to train all ages, from high school athletes to elders, and it's helping their minds as well as their bodies.
Okay, a few. So a couple things we need to talk about. On the back, there's this wall. See, it says "Be Great," and then I don't know if you can see in this picture, but if you zoom way in, there's a bunch of signatures on that wall. And so you have to listen to the story to figure out about the signatures. But one thing that you can't get in the story is this beautiful part that didn't make it in, but
Grandma?
you're here, so it's Granny.
Oh, Grandma. Oh,
She's here?
where Granny at? Hey, Granny.
You're a celebrity.
You're a celebrity. Oh, yeah, tell about Grandma.
Oh my gosh, so this is the hard part. Some parts don't make it in, but I was like, I want to come back and work out with your grandma so bad. It's such a beautiful, beautiful story and a beautiful part of it.
Yeah, all ages. And something that came up, or like the reason, sort of, the thing that stuck out with when we talk about building a city, having space, is one of you said, this was a gym desert.
Yeah, me. Like, there's no gyms downtown. Not one. Well, it is one. Be Great Fitness. But other than my gym, there's nothing downtown.
And what does that mean? Like, we've heard other stories about how things were, certain things aren't existing as much as they used to, you know? And you said, if the city's not gonna fill this hole, I'll fill this hole.
For sure.
What's the importance of having, why do you think it's so important to have a gym somewhere near a community?
I mean, it's like we said, it was his community, but filling that void was important. Like, athletes everywhere, young athletes everywhere, and not having a way to really train and really take their talent to the next level or be developed properly, it was important to fill that void. And I feel like, why not me? Why not us?
That's right, you better answer this. Check yourself out. And for your partner in business and in crime and in life, it was was funny to hear you say that, you know, he was sneaking to doing yoga, because that's what they do. He just didn't want to tell her she was right. Sound like a spouse. All right. You told this beautiful story about the importance of creating movements to allow these young people that are holding on to trauma have a release. And that chokes me up. I'll just say that part chokes me up of that young man you talk about. I don't want to give it away. But tell me, I guess, give us a little bit of, insight and understanding of why you felt it was so important to bring the foo-foo side, people would say, of, the foo-foo side of trauma-informed health.
Wow, I don't know if I should answer this as Messiah, but like I said, I have a mental health background, and I'm not from Newport News. I'm from Northern Virginia, but my work in the mental health field has had me in the field for 15 years, and most of my work were with children from downtown Newport News when I first started. Newsom Park, Ridley Circle, those were all the homes that I used to go to. And to just see the day-to-day trauma that they went through and the lack of access to just basic life necessities, and seeing how they impacted them from childhood to adulthood. I say it all the time, I was tired of fixing broken adults. And so it led me to see how I could make the change and instill coping skills at an earlier age, because I didn't have certain things. My generation didn't have certain things. And I know we like to get it out the mud, but we don't have to get it out the mud all the time. And that was really what I wanted to instill. And it's important because trauma is not just a thing that you read in books, it's held and stored in your body. All the things that you think that you suppressed and forgotten about and overcome, you haven't. It shows up in other ways until you heal it. And so yoga, mindfulness, and movement, I introduced it to Messiah and our original OGs, and they looked at me like I was crazy. Who is this tall lady making me breathe really intentionally and scream, because we did scream healing with them. And to just see them actively take control of their overall wellness is empowering, and it's a part of our legacy.
Yeah, so Messiah, this is Messiah Russell, y'all. He plays football at Hampton, no big deal. And started off at Be Great Fitness, and so when you go in and you see the names, you should look for his, because he's one of the first names that's up on that wall. And so we just wanted to know, like, what that's meant for you now, you know, like thinking back on your time there, what have you kept with you along the way?
Hi, you guys. Yeah, starting off at Be Great Fitness, I want to say I started about my junior year of high school, like right around COVID time. And before then, like, yoga had never been something I really like thought too much about. Like, of course you would see it on TV, you would like see it here and there, but I never really took the leap to really do it. And when I first started doing it, you know, it was definitely a journey, but as the time went on, I really started to see myself benefiting from it. And I mean, even till this day, like, if I feel myself being overwhelmed, stressed out, like, no matter what it is, like, I always think back, like, yeah, like, let's do that breathing exercise that I did back when I was in high school. So just stuff like that always sticks with me. And even when it comes to me helping some of my younger teammates, like, I feel like going through everything at Be Great Fitness, going through the mindfulness, the meditation, the yoga, it just gives me another outlet to try to give those tools to the people that are around me. So
when you say, so I'm just, one follow-up. When you say to a teammate now who didn't go to Be Great, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they did yoga, maybe they didn't do yoga, but when you say like, oh, you should try this out, what's the conversation like?
It's definitely confused at first because, I mean, honestly, not many athletes, especially at Hampton, are like, that's not something that many athletes are always in tune with. So it's always a little confused at first, but then as I go along and kind of share my journey with them and how it's helped me out, I eventually get them to crack and fold, and maybe I'll just tell them, okay, like what's hurting you in your body right now? Like, how can I, like, what's been bothering you at practice? And then they'll tell me, I'm say, okay, I think back to like stuff that I did at yoga, and I'm like, I got it. And I kind of tell them, okay, when you go home, try doing that stretch, try doing this movement, and then make sure you're breathing through it and being very like intentional with the way you're doing stuff. So they go home and they come back the next day and they're like, okay, like I see what you're talking about.
Does that happen every time? Really? Not you. Really?
I would say that 9 times out of 10 they always say this.
And for the 10th when they're sneaking, probably. They'll report back later.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
For sure. Well, gratitude to the yogis.
My shoulders drop. Thank you.
Was being unsafe on 16th Street. Now 16th Street goes over a little creek, and they said this bridge was unsafe. They closed it. Well, also the perception is that on one side of the bridge is public housing, and on the other side of the bridge, Chesapeake Avenue starts, and there's very eloquent housing.
So it was metaphorically and quite literally the only connection point between the black neighborhood and the white neighborhood in a very segregated town. The bridge is only 85 feet across, but without it, the neighborhoods would essentially be cut off from one another.
So to the community, it looked like they were making this wall. At that time, there were all white men on city council. And they made the decision to close the bridge versus fixing it. So there was a group called NOW. The NOW group was a group of businessmen, and there were a few women on it, who would do things in the community that were non-political. So I was called in at the time because I was somewhat in the community and doing a lot of involvement. And the businessmen were really afraid that this city was going to erupt. All of this happened during the Rodney King days. So they were scared that this city was going to blow up behind those 3 things that happened. So we formed out of that NOW group what's called People to People. It was a group headed by Herb Kelly, who was a prominent lawyer with Jones, Button, Walsh, and Kelly. There were 8 of us, I think, that were originally on this committee. And we started meeting at each other's houses to try and see if we could make sure that the tensions in the community would be solved or calmed down. We would meet at each other's homes and talk about things, try and show them the differences between the communities that were going on. For instance, I asked Mr. Kelly, who lived in the middle of the city, Highwood area, I said, what time do you get your Sunday paper? And he was, oh, Huck. Huck is my nickname, H-U-C-K. So he said, I get my paper about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I said, well, I get mine about 10:30. As I'm reading history, not news. So I remember also one time when they were over my house and said, oh, Huck, let's get a pizza. They don't deliver pizza to my house. What do you mean they don't deliver pizza? You live in a beautiful neighborhood. You're here on Shore Drive. You have a state congressman, a state legislator, 2 state legislators on your block. And my block was integrated at that point. This was like 1985, 86. I said, no, they won't deliver pizza to my house. So we started seeing things that were different.
I always fumble a little when we get ready to talk about Dr. McKinley Price, Dr. Price, Dr. We look at each other like, what are we supposed to say? Is it Dr. Price? Because we're like, oh, McKinley can do that interview. I'm like, you better not call that man McKinley. So, Dr. Price, first off, gratitude to you. This story about this bridge just, again, metaphorically, literally embodies, I think, the work we're trying to do here at Truth Be Told. I'll let you put something on that, Hannah.
Yeah, when we set out to find place-making stories, like some specific place that has this very specific story that you might not know otherwise, this story really speaks to that. Because there's a bridge that's here. It's only, by Google Maps, 85 feet across. It's a very, very small bridge. And it's got a big story to it. I mean, that bridge is there because of the conversations that happened in the rooms that you were in and that you were holding space for. And I'm so curious about making more of those kind of spaces. I think it sounds dreamy to me. And so I want to know, what were the obstacles to making those spaces, and what were the things that made that happen and possible?
Well, I think most of it's because of relationships. We had, through people to people, communities had merged. I think we had allowed people to step outside their comfort zone to see how something that's being said casually by you impacts me tremendously, and vice versa. So I think once we had those relationships and we were able to show what this bridge meant to the community. In Peterson Yacht Basin, you know, one side is some beautiful homes down Chesapeake Boulevard, and on the other side is started public housing. So to the community, it looked like that wall was there. What do you mean you find money to do everything else? Why would you specifically say, now, we don't have enough money to fix that bridge? So I think once that and other people got involved in it, they saw what it meant to the community.
And you went on to take that vigor into this whole life journey, and I wonder if you could, for the crowd, describe to them your first campaign sign.
Yeah, well, my campaign manager and I, we wanted to continue doing things in the community to bridge the community. This community has always, to me, been like three different cities, you know, the north, the middle, and the south. And because we have two representatives from each, it's almost like three small cities. And they're different ethnic makeup, different incomes, different races. And we tried to make sure that we wanted to represent one city, that we were going to try and bridge all three of those. And what happens here is important to everything throughout the city.
Tell me about that campaign sign.
What, the bridge?
Yeah, tell me. No, she needs it. No, tell us what the campaign sign looked like.
It's really hard to know.
Listen, don't be shy.
Yeah, well, we had a picture of a bridge. Actually, it was James River Bridge. It was the one we looked at because I actually worked on that bridge. That's another story for about 2 hours, painting it. But so that was the symbol that we used as we campaigned. We said we're going to bridge the community. We're going to do things that's going to make this community strong.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So now, Honorable Marcia Price.
Yes.
Connector in Newport News, helper in all ways. What's your view like of what was happening with your dad, and how has that
Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
I just want to say a few things about a dear friend. So I'm interrupting his wonderful daughter to make that.
You can always interrupt me, Miss Shauna.
You're so sweet. I just want to share with you all that I have known Dr. McKinley Price for 60 plus years. And I've heard the word elder spoken about tonight. And I think we fall into that category. So I'll let you all know that we are both 75 years old, and I think we look pretty good. I knew Huck before he was a husband, a father, a doctor, dentist, and a committed public servant. As a young teenager, I knew him as being popular. He was in the honor society. He could dance and play tennis. Not all the guys could dance, just so you all know. All the things that matter to you when you're young and immature, but that was important at the time. We grew up in Newport News under strict segregation. We've talked about that tonight. But that didn't stop him nor I from doing our very best. We were determined that no one or anything would get in our way to succeed. I did well too, but he did a little bit better. The support of a loving family and community made for a strong foundation. that we love to this day, and we pass it on to our family and anyone else that is willing to hear us. He does, however, have one weakness. He experiences anxiety when he's in the car with female drivers, particularly. For some reason, he thinks we are reckless and we drive too fast. And sadly, I would be included in that discussion. I could go on and on for hours talking about what a great person he is, but I want to leave you with a feeling I believe we both share. A true friend warms you with their presence and gives you the support when you need it. I am proud to call him my friend. Closing, what are we going to do about the airport? Thank you all for letting me interrupt.
Good evening. Oh, come on now. I'm Sheriff Gabe Morgan. I have the privilege of being the first African American sheriff in this city. I heard someone speak earlier about the pictures on the wall in the courthouse, and they were all black and white. But when you come to the sheriff's office, all the pictures on the wall are black and white, and there's only one incomer, literally. But I'm here to pay honor to my good friend, my brother, my older brother. I hail, yeah, older, you know this, I said that, right? I hail from Bedford-Stuyvesant, New York, and the military dropped me here in 1979. And Newport News became my adopted home, even though Huck will tell me I'm not from here. It reminds me of that. But out of desperation and the need to make changes, I decided to run for office. And you heard him talk about people to people. McKinley is someone that most people don't really know much about because he has a very meek demeanor. He's funny. He cracks a lot of jokes and don't beat it at the exactly. He will crack on you in a minute. But he has a meek demeanor. Now I just told you I hail from New York, so I have a different demeanor, right? And somebody said they were from Jersey. You know how we step in the room, right? Well, I had to learn that they did things differently down here. Marcia Artillery. we go back and forth. But I followed Huck. And when I say I followed Huck, he taught me that you didn't have to be loud. He taught me that you didn't have to be boisterous and flamboyant to get things done. You had to build relationships. When he talks about people to people and all these other organizations, I followed him in all of those organizations, and I tell you, I benefited from his counsel. Huck made it to being the vice chair of Riverside Hospital. Riverside Hospital is a hospital that his father-in-law was denied the opportunity to practice in. And he had a hand in trying to make things different at Riverside, a community hospital that serves everyone. And when I say I follow him, I am now the chair of Riverside, and it was because of Huck opening in that door, recommending me to come on the board, and then saying, you can do this. Achievable dream. Premier school that is exported and everybody wants to know how we doing it here in Newport News. Well, you heard he was a tennis player. An achievable dream started from the concept of playing tennis to what it is now. He went on and decided he was going to run for office. And he talked about a campaign manager. And I will tell you right now, that was some interesting times. And we've been joined at the hips. And I'm going to tell you right now, he has a love for this city, but more importantly, he has a love for the Southeast community that is unequal to anyone else that I know. And folks, you may not know him personally, but I'll tell you right now, there is no finer individual than my good friend, my brother, Dr. McKinley Price.
My turn. Good evening. I am so happy to be here. It is my honor, and whenever I'm given an opportunity to talk about my favorite mayor, I'm going to be there and have plenty to say, but I promise I'll be brief. He's probably a little worried because he knows I can talk on and on, but I won't do that tonight. I don't have prepared remarks. I'm not much for fancy speeches, but I do want to make a few comments, and I do want to make them to Mayor Price, and they come from my heart. And I think it's really appropriate that my comments come from my heart, because I had the opportunity, I guess I should back up and tell you, for many of those who may not know who I am, my name is Cindy Groff, and I had the honor and privilege to work with Mayor Price during his 12 years of service to the city of Newport News as the mayor. In his last 6 years, I had the honor to be the city manager. So I guess you could say I had a front row seat to everything that was going on and seeing his legacy as it was evolving. So as I said, I don't have a lot of speech prepared, but I do want to speak from the heart, because during the time that I worked with Mayor Price during those 12 years, I saw him come in day in and day out and pour his heart into this city and into this community. And it was to him all about what can we do to make the lives better for the people, not just in the Southeast community, but throughout the city. He truly represented everybody. And I can tell you, as the sheriff mentioned, that he was driven and guided by a great love for this city. I don't think, as he said, anybody loved this city more than Mayor Price did. And I could go on and on about all of the activities and programs and things that he accomplished over that 12 years that we worked together. But I think probably what is more impactful or maybe more illustrative to you is to tell you, if you all haven't already, go out and drive around this community or around this city, and where you see those new housing starts, where you see those new businesses, where you see those new schools being built, where you see new recreation facilities, where you see road improvements, that I can honestly say, without Mayor Price's leadership and commitment to the city, those things wouldn't be happening. Those things take a lot of planning, they take a lot of effort, they don't happen overnight. And there certainly, for some of them, were a lot of squabbles, so it took a lot of perseverance. And I can't say how much and how honored I was to have the opportunity to work with him as the mayor. And all I can say to close is a lot of us, we come into public service because we want to make positive change, or we want to make a difference. And my thanks to you, Mayor Price, because you made a profound difference in this city, and it was very impactful. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to be part of your story and part of the change that you made in this community. Thank you.
So former Mayor Price did want to be celebrated. He
tried not to have a retirement party or whatever. He won't let nobody do nothing for him. So we forced it on him tonight.
So we just have one more voice that we want to add to this. Asa, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go for it.
Hi, my name is Asa Price, and I am Dr. Price's grandson. I have learned so much from you, Papa, and I know that I'm supposed to speak up when I see someone not being treated fairly, and that I can make a difference. I stand on your shoulders, ready to continue the Price legacy of fighting for freedom and justice. Can't wait until you come visit me more in your retirement.
I had to write mine down because y'all know I'm about to be crying. But Mayor Price, Dr. Price, Huck, Dad, the people who you just heard from now are but a sample of the chorus of voices from people whose lives you've touched and for whom your presence has made a difference. We also have present Mom, Mrs. Valerie Price, Congressman Bobby Scott, Councilman-elect Rob Coleman, School Board Member Maritza Alger, and many friends and family here. And so thank you to Shauna Epps, Sheriff Morgan, and former City Manager Cindy Roth. Dad, you are Newport News to your core, and I know that as you celebrate the other highlighted voices in the Newport News episodes, they are celebrating you back and thankful for the impact you've had on them as well. That's because you make a difference everywhere you go. You listen, you learn, and you in turn use what you know to help others. Your life, especially the parts I've gotten to witness, have embodied your favorite quote when Einstein said, "Strive not to be a success, but rather be of value." You don't show up to meetings to be seen, but to be impactful. You don't choose the flashiest way of doing things, but the most helpful. And you share credit for things even when you did most of the group project. And as a father and grandfather, you've taught us about Galatians 5:22 and 23, never having quoted it, but having been a great role model for all of the fruits of the Spirit. Your steadfast, consistent, diplomatic, level-headed, analyzing approach to doing what's best for the greater good has made for a wonderfully impactful career in dentistry and a public servant. What you went through, y'all gotta listen, but what you went through, being on the receiving end of racist hatred based on a fallacy of white supremacy, breaks my heart. Especially the story you told about the picture window being shot out. Mom was pregnant with me when that happened, and so I truly believe I was born fighting the haters. But you taught me that not all fights deserve my time, and I have to build a network to fight the big stuff together. And Lenny and I watched you and Mom navigate the world as you Lenny and I watched you and Mom navigate the world that was set up for our failure, but we saw you learn the system so you could change the system and succeeded in your professions and in your pursuits. Almost done, y'all. Instead of letting this world make you bitter or isolated, you instead learned in turn to make sure others wouldn't have to endure the same that you did. Dad, you are the bridge. You are to us what Papa and Daddy were to you. You have helped us cross over from the one fight to be ready and prepared to fight the next. You have bridged us from a not so distant past of treacherous terrain in the fight for racial equality to today, where we know what's at stake and we know each of us is required to take action to take Newport News into the future that we all deserve. Dad, you have been of great value to the city of Newport News, and now we wish you well as you soon move into retirement. We promise to fight for a world where you can rest and relax and know you did your part and that the next generation is ready to do ours. Thank you, Dad, for who you are, what you've done, and what you will continue to do. And with that, I remind us all that may what you say and do uplift the city of Newport News.
Any last words, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, the bridge. We thank you all for coming out this evening. Oh, okay,
Wait, we have one more thing to say.
What we got?
Can we go to the next slide? We'll just say one thing quick. What's next? We're going to Elizabeth River Trail. So we're looking at stories that are all along that way. So if you know somebody you think we should talk to, please let us know. Please go back and listen to the other series. And the currency that works in podcasting, I mean, obviously money, that's great, money's good. But actually something that's nice is that word of mouth is huge, especially when you're doing something hyper-local. That the currency for podcasting is to tell your friends to listen to it, because the more listens, then the more ears that it gets into, and then the more people believe that we can do a thing that lets us go tell other stories. So, like, rate, and leave a message, it'd be great. And then we want you to interact with the people that you just heard from.
Good night.